Stop that. I hear him chat to the noise, move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls better tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. You can't go out, man, forget my peace. You take the west side, take on the east. I'ma put them in the cage, never let out the. Yeah. I hear him chat to the noise, move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys, man so tough, but mans keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls better tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
Happy Friday, everybody. It is International Women's Day.
Thank you.
Lucy, more on that in a second. But to celebrate, I'm going to start things off. David Sampson and Ben Lyons are joining us in studio today. Very excited to have them in this whole weekend because David, Adnan, and Ben are going to be hosting an Oscars watch-along that we're going to have on our official YouTube page. The first time we've ever done anything like this. I'm very excited. It is a real, true production, and you guys have watched all the movies. You're our resident movie experts. Ben, this is your first time on the show. Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much. I've covered the Oscars many years on site, but I've never had the privilege of covering the Oscars in Miami to put on the tux in the humidity. Very much looking forward to it. A little starstruck by the shipping container, not going to lie. Reminds me of my first carpet in 2007, the year The Departed won. I mean, look at Juju. He looks phenomenal. Who are you wearing, by the way?
I'm wearing a shirt from my dear sister, Addison Turner. Wherever you are in the world, we love you. Happy International Women's Day, my sisters.
Looks amazing, Juju. So, yes, I'm very excited to be here. And I'm excited to hang out with you and Adnan because I've realized, well, first with Adnan, we are like this kind of like long-lost brothers when it comes to movies and our love of film. And then in comes a real long-lost brother in David Sampson, who is as weird and insane as Adnan. So to talk film with you guys on Sunday will be a lot of fun.
I don't like being compared to Adnan in that way, nor can I don't think you fully appreciate how nice that onboarding was. By Mike at all. With Dan and Stu not here, it was not clumsy. It was done really amazing.
Wow, your expectations of me are very low. I appreciate that. I also like the part where I trampled Lucy. Lucy, what is your advice for International Women's Day? How should us men celebrate?
There's 3 things that you can give to the women that are important in your life today to show them how much they mean to you. There's your credit card number, your zip code, and your CVC. That simple way to tell the women in your life how important they are. Feel free to send that information my way for International
I was
Women's
ready to
Day.
take notes. I had my pen out, Lucy.
Well, write it down.
Well, I know my credit card number.
Just to be safe, mother's maiden name too.
Yeah, write it down and then hand it to me. I'll make sure it gets to the
War
appropriate
shower.
people. I got you. Don't
Name
worry.
of your first pet.
Spartacus.
All right. Well, you should probably chill with that, honestly. You're in
See?
the public
Big
eye.
movie guy. There you go. Spartacus.
David, there was a local story that happened last night. Actually, a couple that I want to get your take on. Uneven night in South Florida sports. Inter Miami get a good result in the CONCACAF Champions League. No, I will not explain that to you. You're just going to have to get that one. It's a losing position for me. But Luis Suarez, form is temporary. Class is permanent. 95th minute equalizer, 2-2 against Nashville. Sneaky rivalry between those two. And
very sneaky.
On International Women's Day, I want to...
They booed Messi. They booed Messi. You don't boo Messi. That's a rivalry.
Messi beat them in a Leagues Cup final, as you all know by now. The first trophy and only trophy in Inter Miami history was won in Nashville. I want to celebrate Katie Meyer and the Lady Hurricanes. They had a huge result in Greensboro against North Carolina. Awful game. Have the right to stop play because this is a player safety thing. They just let it go. I kind of felt like, oh, bad juju here.
No. Only way to stop play is if somebody gets hurt. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, but if you have a half dozen sticks and a helmet on the ice, someone is bound to get hurt.
Yeah, somebody's bound to trip, or there could be a bad bounce on the shot and maybe it gets through. that situation. But no, it's not. It is a safety issue, but it's not that much of a safety issue for them to stop playing and move the sticks out of the way.
Well, Panthers lose with 27 seconds left. They don't get any points from that as the rest of the league. There's like 6 teams in competition for the President's Trophy. Don't mind if someone else wins that. In fact, have that go to Vancouver.
I lived in Miami and Fort Lauderdale for a long time. I flew in last night for the Oscar party we're doing. I land in Miami airport, and I know that the Panthers are playing. So I had a half a thought to have the Uber go right to Sunrise. And I used to live in Plantation, and I thought this would be amazing. I can go to a Panther game. And then I looked at the time of drive, and I had it go to the Elser.
Yeah.
I didn't do it.
Did you watch it? Because the Heat were also playing a national TV
I ended
game.
up watching the Heat, and here, this is another great story at the hotel. I don't like touching hotel remotes, so I have to do it, so I don't. So I do everything through the iPad. I will not turn on a hotel TV because it's disgusting. And so
3 words for you, Dave. It was Clorox sanitizing wipes.
Yeah.
Credit card number.
And keep the wipes on it, though. Keep the wipes on it. And
You can wear
touch the
rubber
remote.
gloves, too.
You did.
Latex gloves.
I travel with latex gloves.
Same
course you
here.
do.
So you turn the TV on in the hotel and you just have Mario Lopez for like 6 hours and you
I
won't
don't
change the
turn
channel?
the TV on.
Just leave it on.
The only time I ever did is when I lived in a hotel for years, and then I knew because I had my own cleaning people. It's just a weird thing, but in any case, I was only able to watch the Heat game. And I was so unbelievable mesmerized by the Heat that they could be competitive with Luka, and they are. And your guy, Terry, I was going to call you, but you
he
don't
had a
like
good
taking
game.
my calls.
What's their record with Terry Rozier, though? I think that's Terry Rozier.
He had a great game.
He had a fantastic game. Limited the turnovers. I have this theory, though, that if he eats, it's not necessarily great for the team, but I'm going to give him credit. That was a good game. That was probably the best I'd seen him play in a Heat uniform, maybe the Portland game. But what is their record with Terry Rozier, Jeremy?
Compiling that right now, but it's right around 500, actually.
Not great. They were playing their best ball without Terry Rozier. Now, I know Hero is out, and that's a tough spot on the road. They've been playing pretty well. I want to talk briefly, very briefly, about the Florida Panthers again, because the only goal scorer from last night was Gustav Forsling, who, for the uninitiated, was maybe the first move that Bill Zito made. Chicago waived him.
Yes.
And he's come here, totally transformed his career, is compared to Nick Lindstrom, for those puckheads out there, by Ed Jovanovski. He is a great player. It was bounced around because his contract was coming up, that in the open market, this player might command $9 to $10 million. He ends up extending with the Florida Panthers for about $5.5 per. An incredible deal. Now, we're in a group chat with Mike Schur in which he's basically boiled all of the Miami Heat success down to the state tax situation. But my counter to that was the Florida Panthers have been around for 30 years, and they've been good for maybe 5 of them. You know, the state tax doesn't guarantee success. However, once you get momentum, once you start having good pieces in your franchise in that front office and an ownership in place, then it is a huge benefit. And a player takes basically a 50% discount to stay here. What kind of advantages did you have selling the state tax? Are you team Mike Schur? Or are you team Jeremy and Mike?
Well, I wouldn't know what team because I'm not in the group text. So I don't know what you're talking about, who's on what team.
Well, I don't disagree that it is a huge benefit to these organizations in the state of Florida and in Texas. You can sell them on weather and also state taxes. But there have been plenty of successful organizations in California. Lakers, pretty damn good, pretty successful. So I would not necessarily boil down a lot of their success to the state tax situation.
The only thing that came up was tax equalization payments. So what that means is when we would sign a player in Florida, they would demand a tax equalization thing in their contract, which says if we trade them to a state where there is a tax, then they get that extra money. They get grossed up in their contract.
Is that just a baseball thing, or is that available in other sports?
Anybody, you can do that. You can do that here. So, for example, for all of you people in the shipping container, if you are asked to do work in New York, you will have to pay at a New York rate versus the work you do here in Florida. So you can ask Bimmel or Dan to gross up your salary to account for the taxes you'd pay for the work you do in New York.
Interesting. This is not really a storyline that you hear a lot, which is probably why agents, we see this. Gabe Vincent signed a deal with the Los Angeles Lakers, and there might have been a way for Miami to make the math work with state taxes that you actually, by taking less, you get it here, but the agents are always taking most money. Is it because of that provision in contracts?
It ends up. It's the equalizing provision. It makes it so players don't choose Miami versus LA solely because there's no state tax.
PJ Tucker's another example there, where he got 3 years. I believe it was $27 million from Philadelphia, and the Heat were offering just under that. The net, seemingly for him, would have been more money to stay with the team he wanted to be with, and now he's out in LA miserable after the Sixers traded him. So that seemed like an agent play.
I did not know about this at all, and the most recent acquisition of the Florida Panthers was Vladimir Tarasenko, a 32-year-old former Stanley Cup champion, former EA Sports NHL cover boy, Vladimir Tarasenko, and Florida was in negotiations with him in the offseason, and he ended up signing with Ottawa, which was a really weird deal for him, and it was a one-year deal.
Well, they should have been up and coming. That is a real disappointment in the league.
But he was 32, had already won a Stanley Cup championship. It seemed as though there was a conversation because Florida ended up getting him at the deadline, which is today, for pretty cheap. And it seemed as though it was one of those deals where let me just take the $5 million or whatever that's Ottawa is offering me, and I'll be down there in the half season. I just want to maximize my dollar.
The Canadian tax issue is yet a whole nother thing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you
Well,
what
can you
happens
explain
with the
that?
Raptors. Yeah,
Nightmare.
Nightmare.
So one of the issues we had getting players to Montreal, or the way you have players getting to the Raptors or the Maple Leafs, when you do work in Canada, you have to file Canadian taxes. Then you have to try to get credit dollar for dollar when you do your U.S. taxes. It creates an extra $5,000 or $10,000 in fees to your accountant because of all the extra things you have to do and these players have to do it. It really is a pain in the neck because you often end up losing money. And we haven't even spoken about the currency exchange rate. And there is no ability in a contract to do a currency equalization provision. That used to be the case in baseball in the old days. The Expos and Blue Jays would get a payment every year from MLB according to what the exchange rate was between the Canadian dollar and the U.S. dollar. They took that away because the other 28 owners didn't like it. And so they stopped that equalization payment, and it was a crushing blow to the finances of the Expos and Blue Jays.
David, you just brought up the Expos, and a lot of people in our audience saw that Netflix has ordered a documentary on the 2004 Expos and the exit from Montreal. And I know it's not on our production sheet, but I'm intrigued. As you brought it up, it was the first thing that came to my mind was, do you have any sort of involvement? Have they asked you to be involved? What is your thoughts on this documentary and the Montreal Expos?
3237 4196.
Oh, an Amex.
Wow, rather give up.
6328.
Are you
6969.
Are you on an NDA? Because when
He's got LifeLock.
you're on an NDA, okay?
1226.
Because I saw the story
code
and
226.
my immediate reaction was, "Gee, I wonder who's going to be the villain in this documentary." I mean, it could be Major League Baseball, but you don't mind leaning into some of these things, do you, David?
So, of course, there's no question I won't answer, Jeremy. It'd be nice if at 8:57 that would have come up, but it's good.
We were talking about the Expos
I'm
at
not
8:57.
sure you're aware of the conversations between Bimmel and Skipper and Dan and myself on this issue
I
at
don't
all.
even have a salary here, David. I am clearly not involved in those conversations.
Join the club.
If this goes well on Sunday, you may be onboarded officially.
Sure. Yeah.
There's
your
a
lips
lot
to
of
God's
budget
ears.
here at
Let's do it.
Meadowlark.
Okay, good
It
to
is
know.
not
Yeah,
about
there
P&Ls.
is. There is. Where interesting.
And some
It's
tells me the
about
tax
soul.
rate's
Jeremy.
probably better down here than in New York. So there you go.
We want everyone to feel good at Meadowlark.
All right.
We want you to feel
so we changed the
welcomed.
subject. So
that was
I'm
good.
just going to assume he's in it and he's the bad guy.
Is there a release date on that? When's that come out?
Have not seen that yet. I'll go ahead and read the variety
David probably
article.
knows.
So the Expo situation is an interesting one because for whatever reason, it's amazing being blamed for the downfall of two franchises. It really is unreal.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you so much, Roy. I was going to get a job with Vinny with the
Oh,
Panthers
really?
while I wanted to move back and take them down.
Great.
I'm just going to go franchise by franchise in Miami.
A sport you don't know about.
How is that different than any other job I've had?
Oh, that's true.
Well, he may just end up taking Meadowlark down.
Yeah. Oh.
Listen, you're welcome.
God damn it.
Yeah. So I know that you don't want to talk about this. I've picked up on that. It's you've been very subtle.
Executive producer of the year.
You've been very subtle, so we can move on. But I will, if you ever want to volunteer anything about this, you go right ahead. But we can move the show along to what's going to happen on Sunday, which is the first of its kind Oscar watch along for our company over here, and for the Le Batard Show Enterprise, bringing Adnan, Ben Lyons, David Sampson in. I mean, titans of their respective industries. One of them to blame for the downfall of 2 franchises. This is
Could have been a third.
I'm really excited about the Oscars, and I saw this coming, so I've been doing my studying. I've treated this like a real homework assignment. I've watched all the Best Picture nominees with the exception of 2, and I will get to them before
Which 2 are left?
The Zone of Interest and Past Lives. I am not a
So
xenophobe.
Past
That's just
Lives
the way it is. Just the way
Rips
that it
your
is.
heart out. That is a beautiful romantic movie.
I'm a
isn't it?
romantic. You don't know
I
this
can
about
tell,
me, but
yeah.
I love rom-coms, and I love the thought of what love can be. Past lives will knock your socks off.
It's devastating. It's
because
wonderful.
you will think to yourself, where could I possibly fit into this story? Zone of Interest, you do not fit into that story. You don't want to fit into that story, but it is a very important. I think of the all Best Picture nominees, probably the most important movie is Zone of Interest in terms of teaching people.
Barbie as well on International Women's Day, very important film in a lot of ways, right? But
Pandering
also
to Lucy, I like it. Welcome.
But just the
Thank you for explaining Barbie to me.
I'm just Ben. I'm just Ken. You know, we're gonna see Gosling perform, by the way, at the Oscars on Sunday. It's a really interesting list of films. You mentioned the ones you haven't seen, but if you look at the rest of the films, and some people, I don't know where you stand on this, they wish it went back to the 5 films nominated for Best Picture. But when you have 9 or 10, you really get something for everybody, which I think the Oscars should be. The Oscars shouldn't be just for this certain type of film fan who loves a certain type of film. They have opened it up in the last 10 years, and especially internationally. You have 2 films nominated for Best Picture that are international films, all 5 documentaries that
Anatomy
are
of a Fall did not qualify as an international film.
Well, they didn't. It wasn't submitted.
Okay.
That's why it's not in the category.
Why?
It was actually not submitted by the country.
Okay.
They submitted a different movie which didn't get nominated.
Is that because there's too much English in it?
No, it's because they literally the country chose not to submit it in that category.
I got to see this other French film that they thought was better than
thought was
Anatomy
better.
of
You
a
won't be
Fall.
able to
Anatomy
see
of
it.
a Fall is amazing.
Because Anatomy of a Fall so far, having watched 80% of these nominated films, it's the second most recent that I've seen, so this may be a hyperbolic take, but it's been my favorite movie of the year so far. And I can't believe that it's not nominated for Best Foreign Film as it's nominated for Best Picture.
So that's a funny thing about the Academy, but about 10 films, there are going to be a lot of people watching Sunday. Right now, go to lebatardaf.com. That's the website for this show. And you can fill out a ballot, and you all should do it, please. Go to lebatardaf.com, put in your Meadowlark Media email address, spread the word in the company, fill out a ballot. All you have to do is beat me, and you can win a piece from my memorabilia collection. Or win the whole thing, and you're going to get some cool Meadowlark stuff. And I'm trying to convince Mike to allow the winner, and we already have thousands of entrants, the winner, the outright winner, to be recognized on the show.
Yeah, I saw that. So you have an opportunity to. I saw it being mentioned on the webpage that you have an opportunity to join the Le Batard Show. Terrible way to be surprised by something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not the EP anymore though, so that can be Chris's call or something like that. I wouldn't have done it, but go right ahead.
Yeah, those NCAA brackets, they always ask you to put in the tiebreaker, right? Or the championship score.
45 seconds.
It never comes down to that. Have you guys ever been in a bracket
I'm
where
in an
it comes
ESPN
down
one.
to the actual final score of the championship game? I don't know how you do that on an Oscar pool.
We're going to make it a raffle.
So ESPN on their bracket pool says the length of the first speech.
Ooh,
so
I like
went
that.
for 45 seconds on the very first speech.
The very first speech, which is probably one of the supporting categories. So you might have Downey Jr. in the first speech.
Well, he's going to go over.
Are you giving away your pick?
I said you might have Downey Jr.
We're going to be releasing our picks at 4 p.m. live.
Supporting categories always throw me for a loop.
Not this year.
This is a very long broadcast. This is longer than our NFC or AFC championship watch-alongs. This is more akin to Freedom than any one of those. But we're going to be there.
Light numbers for the Tony Show, by the way.
That's right. That's right. The Tony Show.
We did like 19 hours.
By the way, is there going to be an MMA hangout? We got UFC in town, which is
There
why
is.
the hotels are crazy.
Exactly. UFC 299 over at the Kaseya Center on Saturday. We'll be live at Grails in Wynwood, 7 to 8:30, doing MMA hangout live there, and then heading over to the fights. You can catch us on social doing stuff after.
And you've got MMA Hangout on the show today in hour
Great.
one.
Not the
right.
same type of excitement surrounding this card. I know Masvidal was on the last card, and it was their first time in South Florida in quite some time. But this is a pretty good card, right?
This is a huge card. This is probably one of the best cards of the year, if not the last couple of years, right? Like, you can go top to bottom from the prelims to the main card, and every fight is match made perfectly by the UFC. This is going to be a huge, huge, huge hit.
But to our other watch along, which will happen on Sunday, you guys are going to be here at 4 p.m. Eastern. We have great guests slated to join us. And the reason why we're starting so early is you guys will also be doing red carpet recap and reaction. You guys
Live reaction.
You guys are
Excited
fiends
Lucy
for this
guy.
thing.
You got so excited. You heard red carpet. You're ready to go. Like,
I love the fashion. Do you guys feel like you are prepared for that?
I am very prepared for
I'm a little
big day,
judgmental,
David.
so I'm slightly concerned how this is going to come off because I'm judgmental both toward the men and the women because I feel like they use the Oscars as this moment to make a statement, and I always try to guess what the statement is, and I end up guessing wrong. Lucy, I hope you're here the entire time with us because I want your input. I want to know, am I hitting the right notes with these fashionistas?
Well, I've already told everyone this. I want to make it public. If Iowa plays in the Big Ten championship game on Sunday, and God forbid they lose, I'm not coming in.
Which I tried to tell her, like, we're not really going to bug you about that or remind
It's
you
about
about
me,
that.
not you.
No,
it's
it's
International
Women's Day.
Women's Day.
Yeah, I understand, but I feel like this would be a welcome distraction. By the way, it's not just going to be Ben. It's not just going to be Adnan. It's not just going to be David. We have so many Meadowlarkers that have agreed to come experience this office watch party. We're going to be in the other room, dressed up, drinking champagne, which is always dangerous, especially around Dan, who is also slated to join us.
Yes, he is.
Willow TBD.
No, Willow's here wearing a bow tie.
Okay, great. I can't wait to see her red carpet look. A lot of us are going to be here. I'll be here on the other side of the glass. It's going to be a first of its kind, and I'm excited to see if this goes well because get ready for the VMAs, boys, after that.
Live from the stained carpet. Go to lebatardaf.com. Fill out your ballot right now. Join us at 4 o'clock. Can't wait. There's going to be some surprises on Sunday. I'll tell you
And
that.
this is why the Oscars matter. Here we are on a great platform like this. You guys have built something really special down here, and we're talking about Anatomy of a Fall. We're talking about a French film and Sandra Muller's performance.
What a great movie.
It's incredible.
They gotta play 50 Cent's PIMP if that wins any awards, right? The orchestra's
I
got to do
assume
that.
that's what they'll do. And you played it. That was playing when we pre-show. People may not know this. This is too inside baseball, but you like playing music, and I rarely, if ever, know the music you play. And today I did, and it made me feel like you're all into the Oscars.
I played Shake Your Bon Bon before that by Ricky Martin. That didn't ring a bell?
No bells.
I am celebrating International Women's Day by going up to Sunrise to watch Mr. 305. I'm watching Mr. 305 in the 954. I missed the last stop. They did 2 nights over here across the street. The Trilogy Tour. Are you familiar with this?
I am not.
It's Enrique Iglesias, Ricky Martin, and Pitbull. And I'm going to watch them in Sunrise.
It's
tonight.
happening tonight?
Yeah. So it's
Ben
also
wants to go. Can
It's
he
also
go with you?
Hold on one second.
It's also Calle Ocho weekend, and I'm celebrating by spending 2 consecutive days in the
Broward.
954. Yeah, because tomorrow I'm very excited. Roy, I'll see you there.
Yeah.
It is a 2024 Kitty Caravan. That's right. We are 0 for 3 so far when me and a large group of my friends go to watch the Florida Panthers play hockey, which over the last 3 years is pretty impressive because they've been pretty good at home. So we're looking to get off the schneid, beat Jonathan Huberdeau and the Calgary Flames, tell Whitty F you, as 30 people will gather outside the arena and shit in a bucket.
Will you get a hotel in Broward? Or are you going to go back and
I'm
forth?
going back and forth. Actually, Miss Lucy, thank you so much on International Women's Day. She's watching my daughter, a great babysitter.
He's going to a concert and I'm working. I'm babysitting. So
What's
happy
your rate?
International Women's Day.
Are you charging him?
Yeah, he pays me. I love his daughter and I love kids, so I really enjoy babysitting her. Actually, it's fun for me, and I don't have a lot of friends, so it's nice to hang out with somebody.
You got to stop bringing it so much because she straight up said she's my favorite babysitter.
Well, I've asked her several times. I'm like, so who else is watching you? And she'll say their names. I'm like, so who do you like more? And she's like, I like you both the same. I'm like, wrong answer.
She's a child.
You've made it a competition. She's
She
like,
had the wrong answer.
she likes Miss Lucy. Miss Lucy brings arts and crafts. She also is going to be watched by a couple of women's basketball players from the Miami team. It's a cool little NIL program that I have.
But I'm her favorite. Don't forget.
None of this was on the list.
What?
You have babysitters as part of an NIL program?
It goes through compliance and everything.
I doubt that.
Part of the recruiting, come down to Miami. You can babysit Mike Ryan's kids.
Lucy said, thinks the world of her. we discussed last Friday the Kitty Caravan in greater detail. Showing up 2 hours before the game to tailgate. The Panthers don't necessarily encourage tailgating because they don't have porta potties around, so I had to purchase my own. And I beta tested it. It's all fine. I know this is probably horrifying to you, David, as a germaphobe, but I got a tent that is in a backpack that opens up easily, a bucket and garbage bags that go around that, and most importantly, poo gel that'll it'll make any of the human waste gelatinous and easier to get rid of at the arena. It's going to be a great time. 30 deep. Roy's going to be there. By the way, I'm spending the next 2 nights in the 954, and if you want to go to that hockey game, I have a suggestion because I had plenty of friends that say, hey, this seems like a lot of fun. I want to join. Well, the game's sold out. What are you going to do? I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to download the Game Time map, and you're going to create an account and use code Dan. And so many of my friends were thankful that I mentioned that little tidbit because you get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, last-minute deals, lowest price, guaranteed. You get to see your view from the seat you're about to buy. Everyone that I know that I sold Game Time on thanked me afterwards. It's the best secondary market app out there. I guarantee it. No fun and games, no funny business where you're going to get hit with all these surprise fees at the end. Pretty upfront pricing there by Game Time, so go ahead and do that. And David, maybe some fans in our audience may want to start doing that for Marlins games because Marlins games, according to a story that dropped yesterday, seem to be about to get a lot more fun. Oh, yes. They are allowing instruments in the stadium, something that you've talked about before, something that seems like it's going to be incredibly annoying.
We've done that. This is amazing that they did a whole press release about something that we've been doing for 20 years. So we always would allow anyone to bring in anything they wanted. We just couldn't get anyone to come to games or to bring in any instruments when they did. But the number one goal was to try to match the Caribbean series Ruach, which means spirit in Yiddish, or to match what the World Baseball Classic. So, Ben, I don't know if you've been to a World Baseball Classic.
Haven't had the pleasure.
At Marlins Park, but amazing.
Yeah,
it's
great
the
energy.
atmosphere, great energy. And we've tried to convert those people to Marlins fans, and it doesn't work.
We were talking about the vuvuzelas the other night at dinner. Remember those? A huge part of that World Cup a couple years back.
I got crushed. None of you were alive, I assume, when I did Vuvuzela Night, a pro player. Mike,
I remember
none of you
that.
were alive.
It wasn't quite the.
This was a long time ago.
It didn't quite match
quite
the
hit.
thunderous sound of South Africa's World Cup, which is I'm
There
sure
were 3,000 people
going
there.
to be part of the issue when you mentioned that you tried to get this off the ground and nobody did it, which I always assumed that they would confiscate that because I've been at Marlins Park a handful of times and they've taken stupid foam fingers away from me in the past. So you've always allowed when you were there, you've always allowed.
Sorry, what do you mean by foam fingers?
It was
were taken
it was
away?
like something that it was a sound maker that they themselves gave out, and I had to confiscate it. I guess somebody wasn't on the same page. Not important. You mean to tell me that they've actually been allowing this the entire time and no one's taking them up on it?
It happens in pockets. And then what happens is if there's 4 people using instruments, then there's people who complain who are right near them. So really the problem that you're having with this sort of announcement is that if you don't put it in just a section, you could have it spread out throughout a park that's not full. And then there's no quiet area, sort of like a singles area or an area not with no alcohol. There needs to be an area with no instruments for people who don't want them.
So that's interesting because the last several years on the themed nights, whether it's like Caribbean Heritage Night or any individual country, that's when the Marlins have been encouraging people, and then they've put their own band out there in the section in right field. Now with the encouragement of the entire stadium, my understanding was that policy had changed, at least with this ownership group. So are you saying you guys had the policy of anybody can bring that in and then that changed?
We just wanted the policy of whoever would come, please come.
Right, of course.
We just wanted fans. So
that makes sense.
I was
so sad the way they framed that.
It's a great marketing strategy.
That's pretty please.
Really why they pay you the big
with
bucks.
instruments on top.
Please come.
One of the things that crosses my mind
Ben.
is just how do the opposing players feel about this? Is this something that Major League Baseball would give you guff over?
It would only be the union if the players would complain. Baseball wants the Marlins to have more revenue, and the opposing teams want the Marlins to have more revenue, so they don't get as many dollars in revenue sharing. So other owners are looking for the Marlins to help their attendance, so they will not. But if the players get annoyed but they won't. They're in Miami. They're hungover. They don't care. It's not going to be an issue. I'm just not convinced it's going to drive any sort of revenue to Marlins Park because it never did for us. But maybe it's different now. Maybe the Caribbean Series changed it.
Lone Depot Park.
Marlins Park.
Last thing.
That's a fine.
That's Lone Depot.
Okay.
Who are you to not care about corporate sponsors?
No, it's
You've
true.
been trying to get that stadium named your entire time there. It got named, and you
got
refuse
named
to
because of
respect
an MLB deal with Lone Depot. What do you think? That was a coincidence that all of a sudden...
Oh, bars.
What? Excuse me. Do you know the ALCS and NLCS is sponsored by Lone Depot at the same time they announced Marlins Park was changing its name?
Are you suggesting that Marlins Park is an added value deal?
I'm telling you how that went down. The deal for Lone Depot Park, it is done as a separate naming rights deal, but it is not a coinkydink that it happened when Lone Depot did a national deal.
What do you think the Marlins are going to do this year? I am now a very loud and proud Mariners fan. I have gone about as far away as you possibly can from this wretched franchise that has just hurt me left and right. You're fully to blame for that. What do you think their chances are going to be? They were a playoff team last year, reigning manager of the year. They added some pieces in the offseason, one of which doesn't believe the moon is real.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Nick Gordon. I had him on Miami mic'd up this week, and I asked him for his most controversial take, and he believes the moon is not real. Not that the moon landing isn't real. The moon itself. You can go listen to that, Miami mic'd up.
So that's D. Gordon's brother.
That is. I also spoke to him actually about D's iconic home run after Jose had passed away, and it was really cool to hear his emotions as D's brother saying he was talking to him a lot during that stretch. You would actually really enjoy
Not
that
grooved.
part.
The ball was not grooved.
Ball was not grooved.
Yes, it was.
You don't know that.
Don't take away the mystique.
Don't take away that
please.
moment. I know how much you
Great
love
moment.
Jose. He's a
By the
great
way, you
conspiracy
could
theorist.
groove a ball to me, and I won't be able to hit a home run. I had a text exchange with D recently because I had talked on Nothing Personal about one of the biggest disappointments in my career was him doing steroids and getting suspended for steroids, and how he had said to me that he didn't do it, and I said to him...
Wait, how did this text message start to D. Gordon? Hey, do you remember that time he got pinched for steroids?
No, he heard that I had talked
It
about
started,
it on the show.
you mother bleeper, from D.
Hold on. Not that far off, Juju. Except there was no bleeper. It was more like, hey, how you doing, Dave? It was more like that. I'll tell you exactly how it started. Love you, bro, /D was how it started.
That stings.
And
That's a setup.
Listen, I love D, and I had explained on Nothing Personal, he was a player who was the heart and soul of the team.
Hey, yo.
A third AO.
D with
Continue talking about how you love D.
Whole nother
I
show
love
going on
D.
back here, David. Continue.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I
sorry.
should have incorporated more. I
No,
was
no,
trying
no.
to-
Don't worry about it. I don't
You
think
incorporated
get it.
enough.
You
You
got
incorporated
it.
enough.
Plenty.
To make a very long story shorter, D. Gordon was a player who
Yeah,
I
I know
never
D.
dreamt would do steroids, and he did. And the only way to get caught for what he got caught for is by putting them in your tushy. There is no other way. It's not
Right.
for diarrhea. It's not for anything.
And D
Sat on it.
D kind of had the build where you'd be like, "Whoa, what is this guy doing on steroids?" He doesn't look like a steroid user, but if you actually saw what his body looked like when he entered the league, you'd realize that he put on about 40 pounds since then.
And we had just given him a long-term contract. We had guaranteed him a ton of money.
I liked him with the Dodgers. I remember when he came into the league. I remember seeing his dad play, obviously, and then I remember actually being bummed by that as well. Certain guys, when you hear they're on the juice, you're like,
It's
"Ah,
one
man,
of the
really?"
10 calls I'd say of my career that I'll never forget getting from Dan Hellum, the deputy commissioner, is the one who called. And I was with Mike Hill at the time, and we said, no, of course this isn't true.
So how hard did D pound you?
Not at all.
Whose balls are juiced?
It's
He
all
didn't-
good.
He was good with it?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's-
it's not like you can deny it.
So here's the problem. It's in the past. It started as that's before Jose died. It was all right in that period of time. That was July of 2016, and it just started this horrible stretch of months for the franchise. Franchise altering.
Yeah.
Life altering for me in terms of the team got sold. But in any case, it's funny you mentioned Nick Gordon. He on the Marlins, bringing back to the Marlins, they have one of the top 5 rotations in baseball. They have Griffin Conine.
And this is without Sandy this year, right? He's not pitching this
Yeah,
year?
at all.
no Sandy.
Tommy John.
Yeah.
Right.
If their depth is decent but will be tested. Their offense is questionable. They have Griffin Conine, who I hope gets called up and finally gets time because he can hit home runs, but he strikes out, but he deserves to get a chance. Garcia needs to be absolutely jettisoned.
Yeah.
But I understand why they won't, because I hated releasing players who I had signed to long-term deals who sucked because it was too embarrassing. So we would let them continue before we bite the bullet. But he's got to go. But I think the Marlins could be like the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, they're actually opening day lineup this year is better than last year's opening day lineup when you factor in the fact that you have Josh Bell and Jake Berger in your lineup to start this year. You add Tim Anderson as an everyday shortstop, who obviously is coming off an awful season, the worst of his career. But if he can get anywhere close, not even to his career averages, just to like 70% of what he was, that's way better than what you were getting out of your shortstop position last year. And with a guy like Nick Gordon, I would expect that there will be a bit of a platoon with him and Avi Garcia to start the year, where Avi will just face lefties, and then eventually he'll be out of the lineup. But he's their biggest financial burden at the moment, and giving him the money that
the
Jeter
money's
gave
sunk.
him. Right, and
You're
the money's
paying him
already sunk.
anyway.
So you got to at least see if you can get something out of him. But a lot of people, because the Marlins didn't sign a major league free agent so deep into the offseason, their view was they're not trying. They're not, trying to capitalize off of what last season was. But if you look at what they're going to look like on opening day as compared to last season, there's an argument to be made that they're actually a better team than they were even at the end of last year with some of the pieces that they brought in.
Yeah, they need to score runs, and Tim Anderson needs to behave. One of the reasons that Chicago did not want him and did not offer him something, there is some concern about him off field and what he does in a clubhouse. So him and Jazz together need to be additive and not put themselves in an exclusive place in the clubhouse and hurt the clubhouse.
That's the place where I think Skip Schumacher has made such a difference. He has this really wonderful way of relating to the modern player, and that he just recently retired from the game, but also has a sense of structure that these guys have articulated to me was missing at the end of Don Mattingly's tenure, that he was so hands-off that there wasn't really a culture put in place. And Skip Schumacher has brought in sort of the cardinal way, and now a lot of the young guys really go by that. Jazz had an offseason of getting rid of McDonald's and sort of focusing on his nutrition and his workouts, and is trying to sort of bring himself into being that guy in the middle of the order for them. It seems like with Skip that Tim Anderson has come in with all of these questions of character concern, but in talking to guys around the team and talking to some of the coaches, like, he has come in and just wanted to fit in and be one of the guys. And when you talk about character concerns, of course it's early, but part of that was he was supposed to be a face of baseball, then had some stuff going on in his personal life. Then Tony La Russa's his manager, and all of a sudden things start to spiral. This seems like the perfect fit where, hey, come in, be one of the guys that's going to play just about every day with a bunch of other fun young players and see where it goes.
So focus on June. The way it works in a clubhouse is things don't get bad until you get to the dog days of summer. It's all going to be unicorns and butterflies now, but June, when you're not playing well, you're below 500, and Skip's voice starts to not resonate as much. That's what I'm going to look for. But it is exciting that the season starts. Do you know that we are only 12 days from the regular season starting in Korea, and 28 teams will start March 28th? So we'll see what happens, but I think the Marlins could be this year's Diamondbacks because someone's going to be.
So
there will be a surprise team.
The over-under on DraftKings Sportsbook for wins for the Miami Marlins is 78.5.
That's a great market.
They'll be better than 500 this year. I'll go on that. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'll take the over on that for the Marlins. Now I'm locked in on Marlins baseball all summer long.
Let's go, Ben.
It is so important to teach kids lessons who are doing youth sports. And there is a lesson being taught in New Jersey that if you don't like the result of your game, go to court. Change the result. You're looking at me as though you don't realize that there is a big lawsuit going on right now because a high school team lost a game because a referee missed a call. It happens. This is part of life. And they went right to court to get a temporary restraining order to allow the winning team to keep playing in the finals of the state championship. Now, I will grant you the call was wrong. That is clear. But I will not grant you that this is a lesson that is in any way possible for the courts to deal with, and they won't deal with it, and it is a waste of judicial resources. And furthermore, we are teaching kids that referees can be mishandled, manhandled, abused, and we will ignore their power. So I've been worked up
What a terrible
about
example
this.
this set. If you don't like the result, just tie it up in litigation and keep pushing and refuse to acknowledge the reality of this situation. I wonder where these kids got that from.
Yeah, where could that possibly be something that someone would decide to do? Like, why would you think that way?
So I have an idea if we're going to allow this. Can you imagine the court? So for all of the people out there thinking that somehow this game will be reversed, this is two things that people have thought. One, the winning team should have given up and said, no, that was after the buzzer. We shouldn't win.
It's not that bad. Was that bad?
Like the
insurance
PSA
commercial?
It went off me. It went off me,
It
coach.
went off
Yeah,
me.
that's exactly
what they're
I
saying
thought.
to
No.
do. And I'm out on that.
No.
Absolutely not, because
No.
things even out in the end. Two, that the judge should grant the temporary restraining order, not allow the finals to be played, and go back and replay from a random point in the high school game. Not going to happen. If the judge would ever grant this restraining order, can you imagine applying this to professional sports? What was the game? Was it the Saints who
Yeah,
lost
the Saints against the
championship
Rams.
game?
Yeah, the Rams had a defensive pass interference play that was definitely not called.
Cancel the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Delay it. We're going to replay the game.
The Knicks challenged the game the other night. There was a call against Jalen Brunson, and he
How'd that
challenged
go?
a three-point shot, and it was clearly not a foul, and they called it a foul, and it didn't go well.
It's part of sports. It never feels great when you're on the opposite side of it. It should be 6 natties, not 5 for the University of Miami, but you learn to live with these results, especially the lower level that you get, the worse the officiating, and you always get to hang your hat on, we got screwed. We didn't actually get beat. It's a lot easier to accept that reality.
My biggest issue is that I can't stand, and this is from personal experience, going to Little League games and watching people approach me about the quality of their kids when their kids stink, but they think their kids are going to be professionals. It must be like kids saying that their kid's going to win an Oscar, coming up to you and saying, oh, my kid was in a commercial. It's Robert frickin' De Niro.
I've been sent a lot of scripts.
Can you imagine? Yeah. But at the end of the day, the way that umpires in Little League baseball or high school baseball get abused by parents, it sickens me. And were I to ever see it, which I had, I would be very loud against these parents. And I would make an issue of it because it's disgraceful. What are we saying now that when this referee made a bad call, they admitted they made the bad call, and it happens everywhere, they say, you know what, we'll let it go, but then we're going to go to court.
No, it's a terrible lesson for young people. And I think this generation, too, of young athletes and parents of young athletes, like, there aren't many sports that have an official who has just overall autonomy over the game.
Well,
Why
actually,
do they even have line judges in tennis? They just put it up on the jumbotron. Oh, look, it was out. Let's keep it moving.
Some of these commissioners do in the bylaws have the authority to overturn games. It just would set like a crazy precedent. I actually remember during that NFC Championship thing, there was talk about, Goodell, take action here. There are provisions where a commissioner can actually overturn the result. Is that something that ever came up in discussions with MLB,
Yeah,
David?
we protested games for sure when we didn't like calls that were made when umpires miss calls. We would do it we would always do in a pre-protest when Angel would do a game of ours at the tape. We would just call it in and say, just watch the tape. We're going to get screwed here one way or another. And what Joe Torre would always say is, don't worry, you're both getting screwed. Both sides. So don't worry about that.
But you do that to try to maybe, like, I don't know, set some kind of precedent, or so the next time around they maybe give you a call.
What about something to overturn something that had happened in the distant past? There's something in the news cycle, and I know Juju is interested in this. Johnny Football came out and did a big virtue signal saying that he's going to not attend Heisman Trophy ceremonies anymore
Until Reggie Bush.
The wrong has been righted with Reggie Bush getting his Heisman Trophy return, Juju.
Which was hilarious because salute to you, brother Johnny Manziel, but you are one of the wrongest people to be pushing this effort. You dig?
He
Salute
said it
to
didn't
him,
agree with his morals.
right. Salute. We love you, Jen. Look, you got to clean it up some kind of way, so we love you for doing this. But we need more support on that because it's a lot of stuff that don't make sense. It's like if I got locked up for selling weed in about 2003 and now weed become legal in my state, hey, judge, can we talk about this? You know what I mean? Like if I'm here for years on years on years, so I commend Johnny for standing up for Reggie, but I don't know if he needs more support around that issue, and I'm here to support him.
Well, you remember the 3 strikes. Do you remember what 3 strikes was?
Nah, put me on game. Put me on game.
So 3 strikes under Clinton?
Yeah, 3 strikes. You're talking about the
3
marijuana.
strikes
Oh,
and
you talking
you're
about
out
weed.
for anything. I'm back to weed.
Yeah,
And
I understand
talking-
Reggie Bush only had like 1 strike.
I don't know what his strike was, but
He got a house. He got.
It was
payments.
NIL money before there was NIL.
Right, and now we have the ability to make money off of your name, image, and likeness.
It would be the equivalent of Andre Dawson begrudging a player today or Don Mattingly begrudging a shitty player for making a ton of money. They all make more money than those guys did in their career, and those are Hall of Famers. That's just how life goes. I'm not sure what wrong Johnny is trying to right.
There was a name, image, and likeness story that I found fascinating, and Lucy, I want to bring you in on this because it involved Caitlyn Clark. I saw the ratings for women's college basketball on Fox. Keep in mind they have different contracts with different conferences, but the women's basketball ratings are better on Fox family of networks than they are for men's college basketball. And the numbers were so good involving Iowa that I read that Fox execs had actually considered presenting an NIL package to Caitlyn Clark to keep her in the sport, to keep those ratings up. Lucy, what was your takeaway from that story?
I wish they had offered her earlier. The reason this fell apart is they did not get the offer to her on time. And honestly, that's something worth considering because her ratings are absolutely insane. I believe Iowa has 7 of the most watched women's college basketball games of all time now because of Caitlyn. She had already made her decision to go to the Fever, to leave Iowa. David, that's what I would have used your credit card number for, to get Caitlyn an extra.
You think
NIL
that
deal.
would have gotten it done?
Yes.
You think that Fox giving her more NIL money would have kept her at Iowa for a 5th year because of COVID eligibility?
Not
No
actually.
chance.
I think she was always going to leave, but I think it would have been enough to potentially sway her one way or another. Like I felt the entire season that Caitlyn was going to leave. She's pretty much accomplished everything you can accomplish at Iowa, except for winning a national championship, and that's going to happen this year. The way that I didn't even realize this till just now, but Caitlyn's deal with Nike is expiring at the end of the year. A lot of her deals are expiring. So she's about to come into even more money than she had before. So like a Fox deal probably wouldn't have made that much of a difference because she just had Gainbridge. She's on State Farm commercials every game you watch. That girl has no problem in the financial department. I just really wanted her to stay for me personally, and she didn't even think about me in her decision at all.
Don't hate me for this, but I cannot say that someone's accomplished everything that they can accomplish when they don't have the ring.
I literally said
It's
that.
the only
David.
thing. But
David,
what has
did you
she
not
accomplished?
listen
No,
to
I
it?
heard.
I
It's
literally
way
said
tougher
it.
in the college game.
But that,
What has she accomplished when you haven't done that?
The all-time scoring record
It's pretty great.
for women.
Amazing ratings.
great.
But
For all
isn't
players?
bringing your team a championship the one thing you get judged on?
Well, she has brought championships, not the top
no,
championship.
it's not the one thing
Hold
you
up.
get judged on, especially in college basketball.
College is so difficult to win a championship in. She's competing against 200 plus other teams. Also, Caitlyn could have easily gone to a school like UConn, Notre Dame, South Carolina, and she'd have probably 2 or 3 national championships at this point. But instead, she decided, I'm the hometown girl. I'm going to Iowa, a school that is a good women's basketball program, but doesn't have the traditional success of these other schools. And she brought them to the national championship game last year, and she's going to do it again this year.
Do you think if Vegas had the first pick, she would have stayed at Iowa? Do you think that Indiana having the first pick was a factor in her turning pro?
I mean, absolutely. She knows where she's going to go. Caitlyn is going to team up with Aaliyah Boston. They are going to be one of the craziest duos in the WNBA. Caitlyn was going to have success wherever she went. I don't really think it mattered a ton that it was Indiana, but I think that's a good fit for her. I don't think it has anything to do with location the way people are saying, because Indianapolis is not as close to Iowa as people think it is. Caitlyn was always going to go to the next level. She was always going to succeed. I just really wish that she had thought about how this affected me.
I think
And
she
she
got
didn't
ties
at
in
all.
Indiana right now. She got some ties in Indiana behind the scenes, so salute.
I don't think the Fever having the #1 pick impacted her decision to go pro. I do think a conversation with a major network like Fox around coming back for another year and having some financial stake in the ratings, that's a transformative deal. That's a different kind of deal. We've never had an athlete do anything like that. So just those conversations alone happening, I think is incredible for her, and would have maybe had her think about, I could stick around for another year and do something nobody's ever done before.
I know.
Well, it's a whole new world now where networks are actually considering name, image, and likeness, where their rights actually filter down to the players in some sort of way. My mind was kind of blown by that. And it's actually pretty forward thinking from Fox. Like, we have a draw here. We can actually keep them.
How many draws are there?
Well, she is certifiably one of the greatest draws in the history of sports when you consider where the ratings were before she came along.
There was a baseball player, the only baseball player of my career that drew anything extra, Dontrell Willis.
D-Train and Jose Fernandez. 2 in 18 years. Basketball, LeBron.
Regionally in baseball, it happens. Like the summer Yasiel Puig came to the Dodgers and they went 42-8. He took over the city and it changed the Dodgers. They have been dynamic since.
Valenzuela back in the day.
There are examples, but it is rare. But what Clark did, what was fascinating to me, and the reason why I loved watching
Manny Wood, he said.
Manny Ramirez.
Manny
Ramirez do that.
Yeah.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, it is a huge market, and the Dodgers are a legacy franchise, but there are players that have gone to that franchise and have been needle movers from attendance and viewership alike.
It's hard to justify, though, millions of dollars. Needle movers really do not generate that amount of money. So for Fox to get in there, you have to be a ratings mover.
Which she
and
is.
The players,
She literally
She is.
The players we talked about are not. She is. So Fox could have done this for her, and I don't think it would have opened up a sea of these deals because there's so few Caitlyn Clarks.
I'm super excited to see what she's going to do in the WNBA because I do think she's pretty much accomplished everything. And to ask for a title, I think Lucy dismissed you quite easily with she could have been with one of these glory hunting programs over there. I'm super excited to see how she can elevate the pro game, especially when you have the aces selling out their tickets. It feels like a real inflection point for women's sports, and that is how you do International Women's Day.